Ahead and call the meeting to order. The Jackson County Board of Commissioners. Today, March the 15th. I believe today is what they call the Ides of March. If you've read Shakespeare, that would be today. So, yeah. They won, though. It was a winning team. First item of business, we're going to look at a couple of proclamations, and I'm going to recognize Commissioner Jones. I think will be presenting the first proclamation. This proclamation is Child Abuse Prevention.
Child Abuse Prevention Month, or April of 2022. Whereas children are vital to Jackson County's future prosperity and quality of life. And whereas all children deserve to have safe, stable, nurturing, and healthy homes and communities that foster well-being. And whereas child abuse and neglect is a public responsibility affecting both the current and future quality of life in Jackson County. And whereas to prevent child abuse, parents need support and resources to help cope with stress and nurture their children to grow to their full potential. And whereas effective child abuse prevention strategies succeed through partnerships created among citizens, human services agencies, schools, faith communities, healthcare providers, civic organizations, children's advocacy centers, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. And whereas Jackson County is committed to preventing child abuse and calls upon citizens from all walks of life to increase their participation in efforts to support families and thereby prevent child abuse and strengthen communities. Now, therefore, the Jackson County Board of Commissioners hereby proclaims April as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Jackson County and commends its observance to all citizens.
Okay. We have a proclamation presented. That's in the form of a motion. Is there a second? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All right. We have several folks here. There's a whole row of folks that have lined up here in the audience today that's here for this proclamation. And Renee, do you want to be the spokesperson? Would you like to come forward and say some?
Well, at some point, we'd love to have a picture with all the.
We would love that too, but I'll give you a chance to speak if you want to say anything.
I would just like to say how much we are all, there's many sister agencies that are here represented, the police department, the sheriff's department, the DSS. So Awake is not the only representative,
Correct.
but we are all working coherently together, trying to do the good work that you so eloquently described, but we could not do it without the support of the county manager, the county commissioners, and so many others, so many private citizens that help us all do this very important work. So we are very appreciative of your recognition of April as a Child Abuse Prevention Month. Thank you.
And we do have the certificate if y'all want to come up.
Excellent.
County manager's the official.
Oh, no. Commissioners, you need to be up here with us. We got a lot of
Absolutely.
Right over here, yeah, you stand right with them, you're on the front line of this and.
the big cause.
I'll stand by.
Let's see here. Pull that top off. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's good nowadays, yeah. Thank you. Uh-huh.
Okay.
He is important.
Please excuse us, we've got a child to see in a few minutes.
Absolutely. Feel free to leave. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have another picture, so I'm gonna leave the photo on.
Okay, that's right.
Are we getting a picture with you guys?
Absolutely. Sure.
Right.
Okay, we have a second proclamation today, and this is going to honor Meals on Wheels' 50th anniversary. So I'm going to ask Commissioner Striplin if he would to present the proclamation.
Whereas 50 years ago, on March 22nd, 1972, President Nixon signed into law a measure that amended the Older Americans Act of 1965 to include a national nutrition program for individuals 60 years and older. And whereas for 5 decades, this landmark law has helped to fund community-based organizations like Meals on Wheels, and it is still the only federal program designed specifically to meet the nutritional and social needs of older adults. And whereas this year, Meals on Wheels program from across the country are joining together for the March for Meals awareness campaign to celebrate 50 years of success and garner the support needed to ensure these critical programs can continue to address food insecurity and malnutrition, combat social isolation, enable independence, and improve health for years to come. And whereas Meals on Wheels program both congregate and home delivered in Jackson County has served our communities admirably for 50 years for North Carolina and 28 years in Jackson County. And whereas Volunteers for Meals on Wheels program in Jackson County are the backbone of the program, and they are not only delivered nutritious meals to seniors and individuals with disabilities who are at significant risk of hunger and isolation, but also caring concern and attention to their welfare. And whereas Meals on Wheels program in Jackson County provide nutritious meals to seniors throughout Jackson County that help them maintain their health and independence, thereby helping to prevent unnecessary falls, hospitalizations, and or premature institutionalization. And whereas Meals on Wheels programs in Jackson County provide a powerful opportunity for social connection for thousands of seniors to help combat the negative health effects and economic consequences of loneliness and isolation. And whereas Meals on Wheels program in Jackson County deserve recognition for the heroic contribution and essential services they have provided amid the COVID-19 pandemic, and will continue to provide to local communities, our state, and our nation as long as it is over. And whereas the senior population is increasing substantially, and action is needed now to support local Meals on Wheels programs through federal, state, and local funding, volunteering, donations, and raising awareness to ensure these vital services can continue to be delivered for another 50 years. Now, therefore, the Jackson County Board of Commissioners hereby proclaims March 2022 as a month celebrating the 50-year anniversary of the Older Americans Act nutrition program, and urge every community member to take this month to honor our Meals on Wheels programs, the seniors they serve, and the volunteers who care for them. Our recognition and involvement in the national celebration can enrich the entire community and help combat senior hunger and isolation in America. Date March 15th, 2022.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Striblin. And we have a second for this proclamation?
Second.
All right, multiple seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Eddie, I think you're our spokesperson.
Yeah, absolutely. First, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to come here today, not only just for Meals on Wheels, but for our nutrition program as a whole. You know, we have two congregate sites, one at the Department on Aging and one at the Cashers Senior Center as well. In terms of Meals on Wheels, you know, it's really three things that make that such a successful program. One is our amazing volunteers that are out delivering for us, our great staff that we have at the Department on Aging, and then lastly, the support from the Board of Commission. You know, we can't do this without you, and the money you give us to provide that support and for the meals and everything is amazing. And we just want to thank you for all the support.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much, and especially the volunteers who carry these meals every day to these residents who look forward not only to a nutritious meal, but look forward to a smile and just a few words to say hello and communicate with someone, and that means a lot. And then I think what wasn't mentioned here too that I've always been impressed by is our animals and being able to help because those folks want to take care of their pets as well. And that's a great service.
Thank you. It's hard to make you guys get up again.
Oh, we would love to. Commissioner Woody, you
Well, I would just like to say is, I found out Karen is retiring, and just want to mention how, what dedicated service she has given to our county and keeping this program going. And I know during COVID, it was difficult, and they stepped up and just did an amazing job. So thank you to Karen in particular.
Thank you, Gail.
Yeah.
It's a team effort.
Mr. Jones,
It
and
is,
Strickland.
Can I put somebody on the spot and find out how many meals are we delivering to our citizens now?
Usually in an annual year for Meals on Wheels, about 35,000, somewhere around there. And then we're doing another 25 to 30,000 in dining room service as well. So a lot of meals going out each year.
Thank you. Excellent.
Commissioner Strickland?
I would like to say a special thanks to all the delivery people.
Yes.
Because right now, at $4.50, $5 a gallon for gas, to jump in your car and deliver food around town to people, for the goodness of your heart, you're a heck of a person.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep, totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Well, let's come down and have our photo made again.
One, two, three. One more. One, two, three.
Ella's gonna be taking my position. Things move fast.
2.8 million conversation.
All right. Ooh.
Okay, next is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to today's meeting agenda? If I hear none, then will someone make a motion to approve it as presented?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is our approval of the minutes. You should have received 3 sets of minutes, one being the budget retreat from February 22nd, the public hearing concerning the UDO amendments from March the 1st, and then our regular meeting minutes from March 1st. After having had a chance to review those as distributed by the clerk, what's the pleasure of the board?
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Okay, is there a
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any question or discussion? Not then, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Administrative reports, I don't have anything to offer today. Commissioner Dietz, we'll start with you. Okay, Commissioner Woody?
Well, I know as many of our citizens, my heart goes out to the people of Ukraine. They're in our prayers, and I just want to voice support for their fight for democracy.
Okay. Commissioner Jones?
No report today.
Commissioner Strickland?
No report.
Okay. We'll move on to our county manager, Mr. Adams.
No report today,
No
sir.
report today either. All right, so informal comments by the public. Is there anyone that'd like to speak? It is good to have Chris Weatherford with us, our DSS director. I think this is the first time you've been able to attend one of our meetings. We've been in lockdown. I want to welcome you and allow you to say a few comments if you'd like to.
Introduce him again. I've never seen him.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring him up to the
Yeah.
podium.
Chris Weatherford. I'm the DSS director. I started towards the end of June. So I've just been over there getting the lay of the land and keeping the ship upright and helping our folks continue to do good work over there. We've got an incredibly dedicated staff.
You're not really from Robbinsville.
No, sir. No. I've been in Whittier for 20 years. That's okay.
That's good.
I'm joking.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm glad to be here working in my home county. And I'm doing what I do. I love my job and I love the people I work with. And it's not an easy job for anybody in that building, but they do good work and I'm really proud of them. So anything I can do, just let me know.
Absolutely. We thank you for coming today, and we look forward to continuing the partnerships and the work that y'all do.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Items 1, 2, and 3. The first one being our finance report for February 2022, and we'll recognize Ms. Darlene Fox, our finance director.
Good afternoon. I'll go over the highlights for the month of February. The general fund revenues collected to date, $57,094,421. That's 78.06% of the budget. The general fund expenditures to date is at $44,162,498. That's 62.12% of the budget. The revenues at this point are $12,931,923 more than the expenditures. The ad valorem taxes collected currently are at 104% of budget, at $38,222,795. The motor vehicle taxes collected is $932,938. That's 63.5% of budget. And the prior year taxes are at 55.72% of budget at $501,611. We received the sales and use tax distribution in the amount of $1,753,430 for the month of February, which were November sales. That amount is 22.71% more than we received in February last year. So it continues to increase. The Article 46 distribution was $197,824, and the average increase for the fiscal year at this time is 15.44%. The landfill disposal fees collected were $2,186,400. That's 99.21% of budget. And the prior year disposal fees, $63,119. The growth revenues we're tracking, all except code enforcement, are at budget or above. The planning is 40% above. Environmental health's 42% above, and registered deeds 19% above. So that continues to show a lot of growth. The general fund contingency, the amount is $1,214,844.31 at the end of February. Be glad to answer any questions on the report.
Any questions concerning item 1? Hearing none, then we'll take a look at item 2, which is the budget ordinance amendments. I think we have 2 of those.
We do. The first amendment is general fund. It's an increase in amount of $372,609.97. We received a grant from North Carolina Department of Public Safety, $84,269.66. AKC Reunite is a K-9 COP grant, $7,500. And LIEAP Pandemic is state money for low-income energy assistance program. And that's $280,336. Then we had insurance settlement of $504.31. The second amendment is it's an increase of $72,197, and it's from North Carolina DHHS for low-income water assistance program. That's also pandemic related.
All right, you've had both of the budget ordinances presented, the amendments. Any questions concerning those?
Are those funds for the low-income water assistance and the other one, are those distributed through DSS?
They are.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And for this fiscal period, do you know?
It runs through June 30th.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Next is item 3, the tax collector and refund reports, and these will be for February 2022, and we'll hear from our tax collector, Ms. Brandy Henson.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
The 2021 taxes collected for February were $1,365,194. The delinquent taxes collected were $63,904. The total deposited for February was $1,511,489.83. And also for the month, there were refunds of $148.62, overpayment refunds of $6,193.92, and releases of $1,317.19. And the rate as of February 28th was 96.36%. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you so much. You now have heard all 3 items under the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve them?
I move we approve all 3 of them.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any question or discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Commissioner Deeds?
Yes.
Commissioner Woody?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Stribling?
Yes.
Chairman McMahon?
Yes, motion carries. Now we'll move to our new business, and first up is item 4, which is the Partive Grant pre-application, and this is for the Koala Park. We have with us to present Mr. Rusty Ellis, our Recreation Director.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Hope
Good
everybody's doing well. Thank you for allowing me to get in front of you guys and ladies again today to talk about the Whittier Koala Park again. You've got presented in front of you a narrative of the park that we have to have for pre-application, as well as the project cost, the matching funds, as well as the site map that I want to thank John Janilowski from the planning department that he did for us to present this to the Partive Grant, which is Judy Francis, which is our state consultant. Is there any questions on any of the stuff that was presented to you in your packet?
No, but I want to thank you for such a quick turnaround. I know this was quick, and we appreciate
I appreciate
so
that
much.
as well. Like I said, it has to be turned in by today by 5, the pre-application, and actually the grant application is actually due on May the 2nd. You know, we've got some work in front of us because we have to do some public, announcements. We got some public engagements for this park as well. So we've got our work cut out in front of us as well. So, but like I said, I think Don had mentioned during the work session, this is a 3-year grant that we do have 3 years in order for it to be completed. So.
And just so when you look at the site plan here, just a reminder to the board that the property being purchased, it actually goes all the way up to Smoky Mountain Elementary School property. And as we discussed, for Partive Grant's sake, it's the lower half, lower than the utility lines that go across, that actually will be subject to the Partive restrictions if we're fortunate enough to get the $500,000 grant. We would still plan on building the trail out up here. We would just use county dollars to do so. And then that'll allow the property that's adjacent or touches Smoky Mountain Elementary School to allow us to have joint programming with that school without it interfering with the Partive Grant rules.
Which will also help in the future with Smoky Mountain need to be able to access that trail, as well as come down and have that shelter, as well as some type of outdoor education component for them. And like I said, the park boundary is what's in red there, is what will be the park.
Any questions about the proposal? This is the pre-application. We've discussed. Yeah.
the red, the boundary,
That's the park boundary that actually would be under part of grant.
but we own more than that.
Yeah, it goes beyond the, above the power lines. Yeah, correct. It goes from the creek, it goes from the road, from which is Beck Branch, all the way to the top of where it touches Smoky Mountain. Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? Okay, would somebody like to put forward a motion to approve this pre-grant application?
I move that we accept this pre-grant application.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none then, Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Commissioner Stribling? Yes. Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Woody?
Yes.
Commissioner Deeds?
Yes.
Chairman McMahon?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
y'all.
you. Next is item 5, the broadband great grants cycle. Mr. Adams is going to present to us this request.
Yes, sir. Enclosed in the package is a PowerPoint presentation that was actually put together by our economic developer, Tiffany Henry, and she apologizes she just wasn't able to attend today. She's out at conference. And so I'm standing in, and I'll do the best I can to go through her presentation and information. There is a request to the board at the end of this presentation in regards to the county partnering with this program with ARPA funds to hopefully entice up to $8 million worth of investment in our community itself. So I'll go ahead and just get started here. And ultimately, Ms. Henry had put in some information in regards to, as we all know, there's a definite and negative impact to lack of broadband in our community. Over 71% of households are without broadband in their homes. From remote learning and meetings has forced us to use internet, highlighting how truly far behind we are. She also put in here top reasons for broadband, whether it be safety, education, healthcare access, higher rates of new businesses, lower unemployment rates. The benefits just goes on and on. As everybody, I believe, is aware, the ARPA funds were granted not only to counties, but granted to states. And the state of North Carolina has decided to use what is traditionally their great grant process to help administer the federal ARPA dollars that's come through the state of North Carolina. So overview of the Great Grant Program. Again, the purpose of that program is to facilitate economic development through deployment of broadband. Generally, these are highly competitive applications. Applications, just so you know, for this round are due April 4th. They do target areas less than 25 megabytes down and 3 megabytes up in regards to internet service. And really important here too is awardees are required to participate in the Affordable Connectivity Program. And that basically means they will have to offer lower rates to lower income people, which is extremely important, especially when you start talking about students in low income housing, the people who really need access to live their daily lives who may not afford a standard rate. Excuse me. Let me see if I can get this. Program guidelines. In each county, a single grant award cannot exceed $4 million. Award for the project in any one county cannot exceed $8 million. So basically, the maximum amount of monies that can be awarded to providers in Jackson County is a total of $8 million. Any one provider cannot receive more than $4 million. We are aware that we do have several providers that are interested in applying for these funds, but at this point, a lot of the information that they are required to submit through this program is proprietary, and it is not public record at this point. There'll be items that have become public record after the Great Grant process after the application is received and reviewed by the state officials, but a lot of proprietary information will stay proprietary. So minimum speeds that they're targeting is 100 down, 20 up. And they do have a defined scoring criteria. There will be a 5-year commitment, so if a company receives the funds, It's a 5-year service agreement. They have to deploy within 2 years, and they have to guarantee to keep the services available for another 3. Jackson County is eligible for these funds. Our providers in our county are eligible for these funds because we're a Tier 2 county. They are also looking at unserved census block areas without 25 down, 3 up speeds. Eligible projects is discrete and specific areas located in unserved areas of the county. Projects that do not include middle mile or backhaul, and they have to be directed to end users. So all the funds we're talking about being awarded have to actually take the service to the house. So they cannot use this money to build their what's called the backbone. It has to be service to households. Ineligible areas are areas where a private provider has been designated to receive funds through state or federally funded programs, specifically for broadband deployment. So a lot of people are aware, Charter received RDOF grants, an RDOF grant to serve Jackson County. None of those areas are eligible to be served by this grant program. And what's bold, I can't tell it's bold here, but Tiffany, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get can't get it to go. There it goes. Wants to emphasize that no overlap of a coverage is allowed. So not only can they not areas that are already covered by RDOF and the charter is supposed to serve, but when the great grant process is awarded, they will not award monies to 2 different companies to provide service in the same area. And so the state does have the expertise to look through these grant applications and vet all of this information. She did put in here a couple maps here to go and talk about, that purple area is the RDOF area. Green area is you start looking at certain areas that have FCC designated 25, less than 25 down, 3 up. NC survey, the blue areas, less than 25 down and 3 up. And when you start looking at it in these cases, you start looking at the green and the blue. These are the eligible areas that this grant can be applied for. This next set of information, this is something that the community should know is we do have several companies wishing to apply, and if we move forward with it and they get awarded, then ultimately you should be able to use nc1map.gov. That is the website, nc1map.gov. You can go to it now, and you can actually go in, and this is a state website that allows you to make more sense than these photos right here. Even if you printed this off, or even if I zoomed in right here, you just really are not going to be able to determine in detail whether or not your house is included or excluded in this. If you go to nc1map.gov and then go to the broadband links, that'll give you specific information. What is required of the internet provider, the company applying for these funds? They've got to list the number of households they're going to serve, the number of businesses they're going to serve, a map and description of the project area, base speed to all locations, total project cost, cost per passing, proof of financial solvency, proposed partnerships, basically if there's a proposed partnership with the county, qualifications, assessment of the current broadband access, description of the proposed services. So in general terms, some of this information, once the application process is through and the award is made by the state, it can become available. Right now, it's not just their proprietary information, meaning specific location of their backbone and so forth. These companies are competing for the same area. So at this point, what needs to happen is applications need to be submitted to the state, and the state needs to vet through the competition. They will take in consideration things like if one company can provide the same service cheaper per household or cheaper per mile, they're not only going to vet the quality of service that's being provided, but they're also going to go through and vet the most cost-effective way to provide the service too. I think it's important to know that because at the end of this, we are talking about whether or not the county wishes to participate in a match. And we just want to make sure people understand that if the board chooses to move forward with matching funds, that there are state officials, experts that will be vetting this and making decisions based upon these criteria here. And there will be protection of not only state government dollars, federal governmental dollars, state governmental dollars, but local governmental dollars also in this process. The next slide is partnering for Great Grant County may enter into a proposed agreement with more than one ISP. So the state could award a couple grant awards. They just won't be serving in the same area, and the county's allowed to partner with 1, 2, 3. The only restrictions we have, it can't be more than $8 million within the county, and it's not county expenses. That's $8 million from the state. The partnership has to be in writing. So what happens is if the state awards the grant and the county's partnering, then they're going to provide us with a contract, so to speak, that we would go in contract with the provider along with the state and make all these guarantees that we just discussed. They will get additional points. It is a scoring system. They will get additional points if the counties participate and partner. So a couple of things. I'm going to go past the scoring and match, and I'm going to jump down to the matching fund section. What the state has really done is quite frankly, is they've just greatly incentivized for counties to try to get counties to participate with ARPA funds. This first slide talks about if the county chooses not to participate, what the provider's match would be to the program. So, for example, let's just use if the provider scores 12 points or less, and if they submitted an application, it was an $8 million project, they'd have to come up with 50% of the monies, okay? And so forth all the way down to 30%. And so you can see that if they didn't offer up other concepts on the next slide, you know, obviously everybody would go for the 22 points or greater and try to get their match lower. But if you go to the next slide, you'll see that if counties are willing to offer up and utilize ARPA funds only, then you can see that the county share, when we say county share, that's somewhat misleading. That really means county ARPA and the provider share, okay? And so if we use only ARPA monies to match these grant applications, then the county share, ARPA share, would be 7.5%, and the company share would be 7.5%. That is a significant difference as far as incentives in regards to trying to get counties to participate. And honestly, what that's going to do, if the county chooses to move forward, and just so everybody knows, the maximum amount of match that could be requested is $600,000. $600,000 is 7.5% of the $8 million total that could be awarded for Jackson County. And so the reality is we have an opportunity to partner with these providers at a $600,000 match level that could get $8 million worth of direct service to our citizens in Jackson County in broadband. And so ultimately, when you look at the next steps here, where does Jackson County fit in? The request is now, as stated earlier, the applications from these private providers are due to the state April 4th. We are requesting, it's being requested of this board, to vote to authorize the chairman and or county manager to sign off on applications, letters, whatever is required from the Great Grant process, stating that we will match up to $600,000 to these grant applications with the understanding that all of what we just discussed is going to follow through. Meaning, this is just trying to get the provider, and we believe we've got $8 million worth of interest in applications, and we're willing to do this. This will get the providers to apply for the money. It allow the state professionals to go through, review the applications, abide by all the rules that we just talked about, and then they would turn around and award the grants. Then afterwards, what would happen is a contract would come back before you to officially sign to commit the money. And then we should have some additional information about areas to be served, specific information about areas to be served. Again, without jumping into proprietary information about their equipment and things of that nature. So that is the request before the board, sir.
Is the ISP, the provider, do they match that 7.5% additional 600,000?
Yeah, it's 7.5 from us and 7.5 from the provider.
6 and 6 and 8.
It could be, and I believe that should be the matchup. Yes.
Okay. Other questions?
Yes, I do have a question. On that one slide, it said, fiber to home.
Yes.
I know that one of the great grants that Sky-Fi got, they put up satellites that sent a beam to their, on the mountaintop. I don't know what it's called,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But this would not qualify for that.
No, ma'am. This is
Has to be
fiber.
fiber to the home.
Fiber to the home. And I did. The goal is 100 down. The 20 up, I think we talked about. Well, I'll be curious if they're able to get the 20 up. But the 100 down is the goal here, which is really a decent high speed for whoever is able to receive this, especially if you're going from nothing, satellite to nothing to that type of service. It's going to be incredible. And I really do like, again, that affordability aspect to this, because when they start running their passes, and eventually when we see the grant application, what we'll be able to see is the number of households they can serve, and there's no mandate to hook up. Or the USA is you're not required to buy the service, but it will be a great value if you're not interested now. It would be a great value to your property to have access to it in the future.
Any other questions or comments? Would someone like to put forth a motion as requested to authorize myself or the manager to sign off on these applications, and that we're setting aside potentially up to $600,000 for the matching dollars?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other question or discussion? Hearing none then, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Deeds?
Yes.
Commissioner Woody?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Stribling?
Yes.
Chairman McMahon?
Yes, motion carries. And just as a reminder, I think we discussed this the other day, and I had a phone call this morning with Representative Clampett's office, just reminding us of the broadband meeting at Holly Springs Baptist Church in Macon County on the 21st. I think I know Commissioner Stribling and Commissioner Woody have committed to going, and I'm not sure if anybody else is going to be. I am not going to be able to be there that day, but just remember that if you're able to attend. Okay, that moves us on down to the next item, item 6. This is our compensation and classification study recommendations, and I'll recognize our county manager to.
Mr. Chairman, is there a need? This will be a 30 to 40 minute discussion. Is there a need for a break or anything?
They need to.
I'd like to get some water.
All right, let's take about a 5-minute recess.
Okay, I forgot to get some, yeah.
Order. At this time, we're going to take up item 6, which is the compensation and classification study recommendation. This is something that we've been working on for a long time and are finally ready for the formal presentation. And so I'll ask Mr. Adams.
Yes, sir. So I've handed out a hard copy of the actual proposal itself. Everything in the hard copy is going to be up on the screen and made available digital to anybody who asks for it. Ultimately, what you have enclosed in there is my cover letter and several tabs. And so what I've attempted to do is to try to take a very long process and complex process and do the best I can as far as making it consumable for the board and for the public in regards to our request on how to move forward. So what you do have in here is the initial letter from myself. It's compensation and classification recommendations. And ultimately, you can see that I do start off by saying we're very fortunate to have the employees we have that provide excellent service to our citizens.
Yes.
But unfortunately, we've faced many challenges in the past several years in regards to really trying to retain and also recruit these employees. So what I do have attached, it is tab number 1 in your booklets. I'll jump to it here, is I want to just provide a little background information to the board itself in regards to turnover rates in Jackson County. And you can see that if you go back to fiscal years 18, 19, and 19, 20, we were running around 12% or so in our turnover rate. And then obviously what you can see is coming in fiscal year 2021, that shot up to almost 20%, 19.8%. And right now, that last mark is our current year, that 15.2% really is, it's still trending, quite honestly, at that 20% rate. I would think, I'd be honest with you, it would be a little bit higher, but I do believe we have employees waiting for the results of this very study here to make their decisions. I do want to just delve into the information. Kathleen Breedlove, the Human Resources Director, has been tracking this over several years, put this report together for you. And so it's going to be hard I'll try to point in a general area. It's easier to actually go to the next page in the tab. But I just want to highlight we've had turnover in practically all sectors, but I do want to highlight some of our major areas that we're dealing with, because we also had to do some things to target these areas when we're coming to the recommendations to this board. So as you can see in the first page here, just to highlight everything, we do have 1819 in the blue. We do have 1920, and on the screen it looks a little purple. And then, I'm not sure it has a color in your book, and then you have the 2021 there, and then you have our current fiscal year, 21-22. So overall, you can see, if you look at the little red tab, that's the 19.8%. I'm going to focus, quite honestly, on the whole year's data, which is going to be, if you see it's going to be in the columns here. And so if you'll go down to areas like the tax administration, and I honestly can't see if I'm there or not on here. But if you go down to areas of tax administration, you can see in that year we had about 31% turnover. If you drop all the way to the bottom here and start looking at maintenance and housekeeping and grounds division, you can see maintenance had a 20% turnover in that year. You can see housekeeping had a 35% turnover in that year. And you can see grounds had 12%. And then if you look into coming into this year, we're still trending in these areas of high turnover rate in those areas. So if you go to the next page, it breaks it down. That was general government overall. If you go to the next page, we break these out into different topics. You can see the public safety totals. And again, I'm going to focus on last year where we have a full year's worth of data. So if you see where I'm scrolling back and forth, you can see that in public safety, we saw a 22% turnover. And then out of that, you can see the sheriff's office had 13.1. You can see jail had 33%. And you can see if you go into this year, jail is still suffering through significant turnover, about 16%. That says through March 31st, but obviously we're not through March 31st yet. Scrolling on down, it says emergency management there. But what that is really our telecommunicators. I know you see a 911 topic, emergency telephone below, but the reason that's broke out like that is because we can't actually pay for our dispatchers with 911 funds. So that emergency telephone down there is actually a couple employees. Our dispatchers actually fall under emergency management. And you can see in the year of 2021, we had a 41% turnover. And then you can see in this year, and guys, I am truly guessing if I'm there on on the screen here. You can see if it's a 41%.
You're on emergency telephone right there.
Yeah, emergency manager right there. There we go. You can see 41% that we're still trending right there at 29, almost 30% turnover in these areas. And so obviously going down, I don't want to discount, this gives you a lot of information here, but I just want to highlight some areas. So if you go to the next page, you can see human services. And in human services, again, I'm going to focus on where we have full year's worth of data. And you can see human services as a whole saw 15% turnover. But if you go down to health, you can see a 17.1% turnover. Social services, a 13.7%. And unfortunately, if you look to this year's column, those are trending higher. You can see that health is at 19 and social services is at 21, almost 22%. And so when you go back to my initial page in regards to, and that's all I'm going to highlight on that particular one, and to the summary, ultimately, when you start talking about why are we doing this, or if we're going through that, it's really we're faced with multiple issues of not only retaining but recruitment. And so if you look at that, why, there are multiple reasons why this is occurring, but I'm going to start off with the pandemic because quite honestly, you see how the numbers line up there where things started transitioning and our turnover and retention started, our turnover started increasing and our retention started decreasing. And really, you all know this, the pandemic has caused the entire labor market to reevaluate everything about. They reevaluate their own jobs, the pay for them to function. This has caused a labor shortage across all industries. You see this on the TV news and so forth in regards to we have all industries that are now dealing with this labor shortage. If you look at my next paragraph here, I talk about the increased wages in the retail industry, service industry, construction industry. They have really impacted things such as our housekeeping, landscaping, maintenance, and other administrative positions. Right now, when you start looking at those types of positions, they can go to the service industry and the retail industry and basically get higher pay at this point. Maintenance and landscaping workers are finding, obviously you all know construction is booming also, so they're finding higher pay jobs in construction. I didn't put it in this paragraph because I saved code enforcement or building inspectors for the next paragraph, but technically speaking, the construction industry also impacts. We generally recruit our code enforcement officers out of the construction industry. And basically when the construction industry wages go up, it makes it harder for us to recruit in that particular area. I'm going to read this first sentence of this next paragraph, and then I'm going to state it plainer. I probably overwrote it. The lack of available trained personnel in specific functions that are normally governmental in nature has caused competition for these employees to increase amongst governmental units. All right. County governments and local governments have positions that are specific to us. We're the only ones that have law enforcement. I'm talking about certified law enforcement. We're the only ones that have social workers. We're the only ones that have certain functions. And right now, we're in a labor war with our fellow counties and even with Town of Sylvan when it talks about law enforcement. And so that is really the point about when I start talking about this next section. The first section I started talking about just labor industries as a whole, that we're competing with other companies in our county, retail service industry, but then we're also competing with other counties in these very specific areas that require detailed training. So for example, when you sit there and look, these are examples, they're not limited to just these things, but law enforcement, dispatchers, healthcare, environmental health, social work, these positions require not only education and training, they require quite a bit of money to get them trained to work to be effective for us. So, for example, losing these personnel can be costly to the county. So I throw in a couple examples for the board. Could cost up to $7,000 in the first 6 months to train an E911 dispatcher. It can cost up to $13,000 in the first 10 weeks to equip and train a detention officer. It can cost up to $13,000 in the first 12 weeks to equip and train a basic law enforcement certified person to work for our sheriff's office. Now, that person doesn't have their BLE certification already. That cost could go up to $26,000. It could cost $18,000 in the first 3 months to train a social work position. Now, that doesn't include, you notice I put a note down here. That's actual cost for that employee. That doesn't include cost associated with our supervisors training those employees. So when you start, that's just actual cost dollars. But if you start taking away the amount of time it takes for supervisors to actually train those employees, we're actually losing quite a bit more value. And if you're a person that doesn't really consider that because we're paying those people a salary, we're losing that amount in service. Okay, and quality of service. So, we talk about training expenses. They can be costly to the county, but the loss of experience, I would argue, is more costly to the county. And so when I say that, it's really hard to put a number like I can on these other costs, but I would tell you in service, it becomes extremely detrimental if we can't retain our employees, especially all employees, but we'd have specifically trained employees with experience. It's important. So I'll give you an example. We have many positions that don't just require a 4-year degree and don't just require some certification. In order for them to receive their certification, it takes them years to achieve it, okay? And it's not about whether or not you can go take a test real quick and get a certification. Code enforcement, for example. To get to our level 3s across the board, to get to our highest level, it is a matter of not only taking the test in all the trades, but you have to have actual hands-on experience for years and years to get those certifications. So if we go and try to replace a level 3 code enforcement officer, you can't. The only way you do that is you've got to go hire a level 3 code enforcement officer. There is no other means. I could make the same discussion when you start talking about environmental health specialists for the health department. You can go on and talk about social workers. Social workers, obviously, when they go up their chain, they have their certifications and job descriptions are based upon not only their education and their certifications, but their experience. And then you can go on and talk about law enforcement officers. I know we focused at the beginning of this year, the sheriff had issues with deputies, correct? I mean, that's what we talked about. But, at the end of the day, you also have to talk about what I would call your mid-level officers. And I try to use a correct term because every employee we have is an important employee. But what I mean by mid-level is that employee that maybe started as a deputy, got experience, moved up through the ranks, and now has become a detective, has become some type of supervisory position, things of that nature. You only do that with experience. If we want to, we do have, unfortunately, crime in our community that require investigations and require things of that nature. And what you need is experienced officers to actually truly conduct those investigations. So again, these are just examples that I'm trying to say that when we start talking about looking at a compensation and recruitment plan, we have to take into consideration multiple things. And so ultimately the conclusion, and I think we can reach it by either turnover rates and things of that nature, but I hope we all would admit that our current pay plan structure is just not adequate. That is why our turnover rate is so high and we're not retaining our existing employees. Again, I do state in here it's becoming difficult not only just to recruit that front end, but also to replace the experience that we're losing to these other counties. And so the county, What it's come down to when we looked at staff, we needed to update our current pay plan to accomplish, and I listed out 5 items here. Whenever you approach these items, what you really need to do is you need to basically make sure that we properly provide the current job functions appropriately recognized and named. Okay, so you have to evaluate your current position. Sometimes duties change, things of that nature. So you just have to go through that process. That's every compensation process. We need to look at updating the grade table to correctly place these titles and functions. Remember, we do have a grade plan that all the way from now, it's going to be grade 15 to grade 39. But when we start placing these, it really is placing in an appropriate grade that is based upon market and job functions. We also need to look at ensuring that the pay ranges for these job titles are competitive in the marketplace. So again, and you'll start seeing, I'm doing this with my hands, but when I put it on the screen, it'll make more sense. When you start talking about putting job titles in the grade system, it's really a vertical thing. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ours is actually 15 through 39. When you start talking about paying a range, you really start talking about a horizontal conversation about how do you pay for experience, okay? So you're trying to make sure that your starting salary is appropriate to hire that particular function, but you also got to have the ability to pay for experience. And I'll go into that a little bit more detail later. The next item is implement a pay range step system that allows for the retention of existing personnel of recruitment of both experienced and inexperienced personnel. I'm going to mark number 4 because when you go through a system like this, I know these seem like little things, but this is one of the most challenging things that you try to accomplish because you're trying to accomplish a front end salary that's going to recruit and recruit for experience, but you're also trying to be fair to your experienced employees and your long-term employees. And I'm going to tell you that number 4, quite frankly, is where a lot of time and effort is put in. It's all time and effort, but a lot of time and effort in number 4 to be effective. And number 5 is to continue with a career path system to maintain the ability to retain and recruit. Just a reminder to everybody, this is a path that the county has been on for multiple years. And this path started back to when we started our career path system, in which the county went back and funded and put everybody on their correct years of service step in their appropriate grade. That was a $1.8 million expense to the county, and it happened about 5 years ago. And that is what allowed us to start recruiting, to be fair to our existing employees, but to start recruiting experienced employees. So I mentioned that as 5 because it's just as important to maintain that system in order for us to continue forward. And that's where I'm talking about being able to hire new people, but be fair to our existing experienced people. So going down and recognizing the need of all of this, this board authorized me back at the beginning of this fiscal year to hire a consulting firm, and the county hired Evergreen Solutions back in July of 2021. What they did was they conducted job assessments for each position, performed a salary market study, and made recommendations regarding the county's pay plan. And so that is where we're going to go to now, and it's attachment 2 in your book. And I believe it's there. Okay. So I encourage everybody to go back and read this. What I'm going to try to do as best I can is just highlight some key components here. I would also always refer you back to those 5 steps that I mentioned earlier, because if you go through this plan, we're trying to take in consideration those 5 goals and objectives that I've mentioned through this plan, and trying to best we can deal with those issues. And so in the report to the board, the first item they discussed with the board is the market study that was conducted. And so, again, I encourage everybody to go read this. I'm going to just go through some highlights here. And so under the market study here, if you go to this last exhibit, it talks about Exhibit A, and we'll go to this in a minute, provides the list of 21 peer organizations from which data was collected for 75 classifications. So what the county did is we identified 21 places we were trying to get salary data from. So if you go to the next exhibit, so we identified 21 places we were trying to get. But remember, when we do this study, we're not studying 400 titles, okay? You know, we hire a professional firm and they come in and they look at our current grade system and then they help make recommendations on which titles to go out and do the market study on. And from that market study information, you can go out and make recommendations on the rest of our pay plan. Okay. And by the way, market is study information is not the only set of information that's used to help determine this. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So ultimately, you can see these are the 21. Out of those, it's hard to say, it's hard to see here, but the bold ones, you can probably see it in your book better. The bold ones are the ones that we actually obtained enough information that we're able to use that data. What you can't do is use data, partial data or incomplete data. So ultimately, at the end of the day, when we were working with this group, we wanted to make sure we had plenty of counties to look at. We wanted to make sure we had the town of Silva, which is some people we're competing with, transportation. But we also wanted to make sure we had our counties that we were touching, that we knew that we were directly competing with. And we feel like we've got a good sample of data here that we used. So when they bring this information in, what they do is and again, feel free to read through this. What they do is, actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and just jump to the chart itself and explain the chart. When you look at salary ranges, a range means the beginning of a salary and the end of a salary. For us, we look at that as 30 years, 30 steps. When they do these studies, they look at beginning salary, midpoint of your career salary, and the end point, okay? And so what they've done is they've done that with every one of these. So you'll have 2 columns for beginning, 2 columns for mid, 2 columns for end, and then a percentage of overall. So I'm going to go down to the totals here. And you definitely can see that on the screen. Oh, yeah, you can. So on average, what has happened at the beginning of our salary range, they have found on average for these positions that we were 12.3% below market on average. Now remember, this isn't the only data that's used when we start looking at this. Remember, we have our career path system and things of that nature. When you get to about midpoint of these careers, we were right around 4%. It says above, but we're right there on average. And then when we got to the end of the careers, we were right at average also. And so that is basically when you're looking at these paragraphs here, you can see right here it says Exhibit B is 12.3%. I'm not reading it all. I'm just going through and telling you what it's saying. And so then if you go to the next point where it says market midpoints, it's saying that the market midpoint is 4.4% right on. And then not below, we're right at it, a little above. And then you see market maximums, we're about 4.3 ahead. Now, I want to read this first sentence right here. It should again be noted that the standing of classification pay range compared to the market is not a definitive assessment of an individual's employee salary being equally or below the market. What this is doing is trying to get us an idea, a concept of what we're attempting to do. All right. And so we have to take in consideration the market data, our job descriptions, what's actually happening to us. You know, remember, just because I'm going to scroll back. Just because Alexander County doesn't have a problem with housekeepers, that has nothing to do with us. Does that make sense? Okay, so you can't just use, when you're doing an average right here, you can't just use the average when you're trying to calculate and you're trying to target areas. What we're trying to do is figure out whether or not we're in the ballpark, so to speak. And I try to just use that as an example. Now, when you jump down to the next page, recommendations. So first of all, the recommendations are a classification system. And one of the things I wish we had them write it a little bit different and talked about this up front first, because this paragraph right here talks about where I'm pointing here, and it's on the page 1 under recommendations. In the analysis of the county's classification system, Evergreen collected classification data through the job assessment tool. So, and you guys can go on and start reading this. I've mentioned this to you before. I've actually had Ms. Breedlove stand before you, and she gave you an update. What this was every county employee submitted information to this process about talking about what their job functions and duties were. And then ultimately supervisors were allowed to comment on top of that, and department heads were allowed to comment on top of that. Okay. And so ultimately what that did was a couple things. It allows us to talk about whether or not the job functions were the same or did it change, and are their titles correctly titled? Okay. So am I really let me see if I can try to use it. Am I really doing a certain function, or am I actually doing something else? Should I be titled something else? And so ultimately, the result of that is they did have some recommended changes in regards to job titles. So some of these are grade changes, but some of them are basically just very simplistic. You can see like director of finance director. That's really just a job. That really means nothing to hear. Okay. So I'm picking up.
He just said that was a nothing position.
Oh, good Lord.
My goodness.
Man, I was doing so good too, wasn't I? Okay. I'll pay for that. All right.
Yes, you will.
Okay. What I mean, now you're going to make me spend 30 seconds backtracking and
Is that in the minutes?
eating crow. What I mean is her job functions did not change, and the reality of whether you're called director of finance or finance director really is not germane or relevant to the main reason we're performing this study. Is that better? You mean something, Darlene. And so ultimately, they did make a recommendation to make some of these changes. And then I'll just go past that to page 3 and talk a little bit more about the compensation system. Okay. Now, this is where I want to focus on this first sentence here. The compensation system consisted of 2 parts: external market assessment and internal equity assessment. So remember what I was talking about in regards to trying to make sure our employees are ranked correctly, and then you're trying to make sure market-wise, are we paying our individuals correctly? I'll focus on this sentence here, during the internal equity assessment, consideration between relationships between positions and type of work being performed by the county employees was reviewed and analyzed. A composite score was assigned to each of these classifications. The reason I'm just reading this out loud to you because this truly is what we're paying, part of what we're paying this company for. Not just going out and doing a survey of the surrounding counties. They're assessing the functions of our employees, and they're making sure that we are correctly putting them into positions. And so it looks like a paragraph in the report, but this is where they do spend quite a bit of time on going through this process. And if you...
Just one question about that process. Did they find any positions that in their evaluation that were overpaid? You don't have to tell me which one. I just wondered if that occurred at all.
No.
Okay.
Only the county manager.
Oh, okay. Yes.
No. So here's that next sentence. The county's salary ranges were found to be behind its desired market position for more than 22 of the surveyed classifications. So you remember, when you put these employees in ranking, let's say, for example, let's use health department. Okay? The health department operates under the State Personnel Act. Okay. So if you come in and if you sit there, they have certain requirements for what we're going to talk about our grade systems, that if you are an environmental health specialist or environmental health worker, then an environmental health specialist or environmental health supervisor are required to be certain grades above those positions. This is a requirement of the state. Social services is under a very similar system. So the reality is when you start talking about a social worker, one position or two position is underpaid, then when you're doing this kind of thing, you have to take it up the chain. You have to move all the positions up. And then when you start comparing departments and unlike positions and so forth, that is really going back to my point of why we pay a company to come in here and assist us in the ranking side of things. It does say implementing a new, more competitive pay structure, pay plan would provide the county with improved ability to attract and hire and retain employees. The recommendation two is to revise the county's current step plan to reflect the county's desired market position. And so before I go and look at the step plan, and this is the horizontal plan that I mentioned, that we started this process years ago as far as putting everybody on the appropriate step. Before I propose this, I want to focus on a couple of sentences here. One is the revised plan, step plan shows 26 pay grades numbered 15 through 40. And then if you go down first, the pay plan was condensed from 31 pay grades to 26 pay grades. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit later about what that is. What's happened is we reduced it was recommended to remove the bottom 5 pay grades, 10, 11, 12, 4 pay grades. And we'll discuss why that occurred. Before I get into the vertical side, I want to talk about the horizontal. The second is a proposed pay plan reduced the number of steps range maximum from 35 steps to 30. And finally, a new step progression was used to move employees towards a range midpoint more quickly. Now, I'm going to say that again. Finally, a new step progression was used to move employees towards midpoint more quickly. Now, go back to the market data. Remember what the market data told us. Between the beginning and midpoint is where we saw, at least on average, the lowest pay range there. So this was one of the responses of the lowest, where the percentage was at its lowest. This is response, the recommendations that come back from this group is to start looking at changing the step system. So, and this is also a response to, we had multiple departments talk about recruitment issues. And the recruitment issues is in regards to trying to get that 8-year veteran environmental health specialist to come here. Remember, and the only way to get that veteran over here is to pay for that veteran. You can't replace years of experience with money. You have to find somebody with the years of experience. And so what this proposal is, as you can see, it is taking the first 10 steps of this proposal, and it is creating a separation of 3.15% per step. And so you can see that is what it's doing, and what that's going to allow for. And when you start talking about recruiting a 9-year veteran, a 10-year veteran, what it's doing is getting us closer to the midpoint of that range, okay, in order to allow us to recruit. Now, the second part of this conversation is once you go past the 10 years, it starts reducing to 1.5% per step. Now, this is something that I know Ms. Fox and I really spent a lot of time on trying to make sure we understood what this meant. A couple of things to talk about here is if you're a 13-year veteran here, and when you see what your proposed pay increase is going to be, which will go back to all employees proposed to have a pay increase, what you're actually going to see, okay, is you're going to get credit for all of these first 10 years because you're on step 13. Remember, that is building on top of each other. And then ultimately you're at 13, and yes, it does go 1.5%. But what I'm trying to tell you is even the 25th year veteran got a raise because at the end of the day, from the beginning to the end, it's more money. What they're proposing to do is to increase our entire scale. Okay, so my point is from year 1 to year 30 in this proposed plan, you make more money than our previous plan. And that is why what you will see that people who are in their 22nd year, that the next year they get 1.5%. You know, this is not a new conversation when we deal with, I'm sure those of you with experience with governmental budgets, you've dealt with, well, if we gave a 5% across the board raise, then the high end ends up getting a $15,000 raise, and the low end, where you're trying to target, ends up getting a $2,000 raise and things of that nature. Well, the reality is no matter where you're at, whether you're a housekeeper at 15 or if you're down, you know, at 34, ultimately you're at a higher portion of your career at this point, making more money. So at that point, you are talking about 1.5%. And by the way, because you've gotten credit for the 3.15% for the first 10, and then the 1.5%, you are making more money in this career path than the previous career path. And so ultimately, I just want to keep pointing this out, that when employees see what their increase proposal, they're going to understand. And I'm talking about the whether it be the 17, 18, 20-year veteran, somewhere in there, they're going to understand. I'm not standing here just saying words. We have vetted what I'm saying to you multiple ways. And at the end of the day, this is also going to help us with recruitment and retainage. And especially when you start talking about anybody that's a 5-year, 7-year veteran, that is who is getting poached from, or who is it's becoming more difficult for us to retain, and that is who other counties are basically coming in and offer pay for. So this was a response to not only just the market data, but it was also a response to what our needs are, and our needs were to try to drive the first 10 years a little bit quicker to the midpoint so that we can increase our ability to recruit those individuals. And it's not being unfair to the 12 or 13-year veteran, because that 12 or 13-year veteran has already received that 3.15% credit. Yeah. So I'm going to go to the, everything else is self-explanatory there. I'll go to the last page there. And so this is the step plan. The next conversation is after revising the pay plan, the Evergreen, they slotted each proposed classification into the appropriate pay range. And so in the revised pay plan, both internal and external equity were analyzed, and desired market position and recruitment retention concerns were analyzed. And then ultimately, that is what generated our grade plan. Okay. And so things like, when you talk about market position and retention, one of the key factors that was done here, we used to have, I think I mentioned before, the new grades range from 15 to 39. They used to start at 10. This now is being proposed, and if you look at these positions here, which includes housekeepers and certain maintenance workers and so forth, that the beginning, and I know the whole world now has switched over to per hour conversations versus salaries. It's interesting for me, through my career, we've always discussed these terms in salaries. But that ultimately has brought the lowest grade in our system to $13.50 an hour. Okay. So remember, when we talked about, I went back to the 12% below, and we start looking about, that's not the only percentage we got to look at. We also had to go and look at some target areas, because, for example, I'll use housekeeper or entry-level maintenance worker and so forth. It was great data to have Alexander data about some of maybe our code level 2 positions and so forth. But their market data on entry-level maintenance workers or housekeepers or some of these other positions has nothing to do with us. Okay, we're competing regionally, or we're competing with Jackson County here, not in Alexander. And so these are types of things that we came back understanding, going back and looking at that turnover rate that I was showing you, that we needed to make some adjustments in these areas. And ultimately, one of the adjustments was we basically came and removed the bottom 4 grades, and was recommended, and to put these positions at a minimum salary or minimum per hour of $13.50. And then ultimately, things had to get readjusted to move people up the grade system to continue on with this conversation. So, bear with me. So the proposed grade system is in this report. And then the final conversation really is I'll go to where to page 11. It's really the modified Class 8 placement. Okay. After employees were moved to the proposed pay grade, what we just saw, employee salaries were placed on the appropriate step grade as far as classification date. They're calling that like when you started working for Jackson County. That's what they're calling their classification date. But remember, we have a career path system. We've recruited people based on experience. We've been doing this for several years. So ultimately, it says the county then evaluated each employee's proposed grade and step placement and proposed changes to ensure employees maintain their career path and progression. That sentence right there. Okay. And so ultimately, after going through all of these processes and going through the recommendations, utilizing this approach, the years and classification adjustments were then recommended for 405 employees with approximate total annualized cost of $2,869,388.99. Now, I have another document here that's going to show you there's cost above that. That's actual salary cost. There are benefit cost above that we're going to discuss later.
How many employees do we have total?
There's 405 on this study. We have more.
So every single one
Every single employee will
had an adjustment? Okay.
So, yep. And so, going down, their final recommendations here, basically is talking about maintenance of the system itself. Maintenance in the system itself is basically recommendation 3 is to conduct small-scale salary surveys when needed. Now, I want to also say this first sentence here says, while it is unlikely that a pay plan in total will need to be adjusted for several years, may occasionally have to deal with some market adjustments. And finally, they do recommend every so often that you conduct a survey such as this. And honestly, it occurs in my career. This is my fourth one. I've been doing 20-something years, so it's about every 5 to 7 years. Most counties find themselves into trying to do some type of overall analysis like this. And then at the end of their report, they do go in and they do say that, and I'm just going to focus on one sentence here. By implementing the new pay plan, it will have a responsive compensation system for several years to come. And so they do believe it will meet the needs and help us with all the issues that are identified. Now, I'll go back to my front letter just to make some conclusions. In the front letter, I go on to state it is believed that implementing these recommendations will reduce our turnover rate by retaining our employee pool. It will also empower us to attract inexperienced and experienced applicants to backfill our vacancies. Vacancies are created by multiple reasons: limited, voluntary, turnover, involuntary, things of that nature. So it is requested that the Board of Commissioners vote to implement the recommendations as presented. It's also requested that adoption of the new pay grade, new step plan, and the current career path systems be effective January 1, 2022. The anticipated cost for this request can be in attachment 3. And before I jump to attachment 3, I just want to finish up my paragraph here, my last paragraph. I do want to thank all employees. Again, I tried to describe the process at the beginning. All employees, department heads, elected officials for their participation. Especially want to thank Kathleen, Human Resources Director. She's the one to help organize that whole input process along with this company. So she's Ms. Breedlove to help keep the organized process. And then, obviously, I thank Darlene for all the detailed work and the multiple reports and so forth put together during this process. So having said that, to conclude, to look at the the actual cost estimates for this request. So, a couple of things to note. If you look here, this top column, you'll see the 2,869,389. That is the number that matches that comes from Evergreen Solutions. You'll see all of our cost, FICA retirement, cost, Medicare, the taxes, and so forth. The total annual cost is $3,443,580. And just so you know, this is a 16.36% increase in payroll total. So if you go back to the market, it'll be at 12% or so at the beginning, and then I talk about these other career path issues and so forth. That's what got us to the 16%. So for this year, if the board chose to make it effective January 1 of 2022, then you can see that it's a cost of $1,721,790.30. We, as you recall, we do have $725,000 reserved. So this year, if you chose to do that, it would require a budget amendment for $996,790. New capacity going into next year would be $2.7 million. And what that is basically the 3.4 minus the 775 we already have budgeted. So it's the new capacity needed for next budget is 2.7 million. And we'd also need to stay on our career path system. That's basically giving everybody a step increase, which being another $567,000. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Okay. We've gone over this at quite a length, and I'm going to go ahead and put forward a motion, and then we can have comments or discussion as needed. This is a very specific motion, and I would move that we adopt the new pay grade system, the new step plan system, and the current career path system as presented to us today be effective as of January 1st, 2022 for all current active employees who are not within a resignation notice period. So that's the motion I would put forward. Is there a second?
Second.
Any question or discussion concerning the motion?
Some of the counties that were used that border Jackson, was this total similar to their increases? Maybe ones with population size close to ours.
It's similar to Haywood. I believe Macon's was a little higher. Is that correct? Haywood's is fairly similar to the amount. Yeah.
But also you have to take into consideration, as we've talked before, it's never an apples to apples comparison because some counties don't have career path like we do.
And that career path, just to follow up with that, that is going to be when we have, whether it's the sheriff or our 911 coordinator or emergency management, we are in real competition for some of these positions. And so that career path that I just mentioned, where we just saw the percentages, that is really going to enable our sheriff and enable our emergency management coordinator, enable our health services, enable them to truly show, if somebody's thinking about leaving us, show them that what they can look forward to next year and a year after and a year after. And I've been told that they felt like this would help, very much help in that negotiation with those individual employees.
And I would just like to offer this comment that we often talk about the beauty of Jackson County and the amazing natural resources that we have here. But I think our greatest asset is our people and our employees. And I feel like this reflects the value we place on them.
Absolutely. I've been involved in Jackson County government for over 22 years. Started out as an employee and have served, right now I'm finishing my 4th term as a county commissioner, and I've been a part of 3 of these studies. And I will say that by far this is the most fair and equitable salary survey study that I have been a part of. or I have seen in other jurisdictions. I think it does a lot towards focusing on the middle part of the payroll, trying to address our retention needs. As Don has talked about, it focuses on the bottom side of the payroll and trying to help us recruit people. But yet it still, as we've talked about, it still rewards and compensates fairly those on the upper end for all the hard years of service they've provided us. I think it's been well thought out. Our staff, Don and Darlene especially, have spent numerous hours going over every one of these numbers. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate the hard work that's gone into this. I think this is a great plan. I'm very proud of it. I think it will do great for our employees currently, and this will leave a mark upon Jackson County and for future conversations about protecting our leadership and protecting those positions that will become tomorrow's leaders that are currently working for us, which is a very critical step that we need to take today.
I'm involved in my fourth term too, and I can recall two, but I think I've been involved with three of these studies too. And this does seem to be the most equitable version, and the recruitment component. I'll just say, right now on our door across from your office, how many jobs do we have advertised?
8, I think.
8 currently, 8 positions right now that that Jackson County needs. And there might be more out there, but the financial component. Let me back up. EMS Harris Regional, they lost 19 EMS rescue staff last year. 19. And now, does Jackson County citizens want a 2-week EMS person come to their house? We want the best firemen, we want the best EMS, we want the best sheriff's deputies to serve our citizens, all the way from DSS to the health department. And this is one way that we can provide, keep our quality of life as we are used to it here in Jackson County, as well as enhance the staff, the 405 county employees that will be serving Jackson County.
Any other comments or questions?
Oh, I've got one comment.
Okay.
Ms. Fox, how much increase, that 16% overall for county employees, how much did the commissioners receive?
Zero.
Zero increase.
That's all I got to say.
Anybody else? All right, if not, then I'm going to call the question and ask our clerk if she'd call the roll, please.
Commissioner Stribling?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Woody?
Yes.
Commissioner Deeds?
Yes.
Chairman McMahon?
Yes, motion carries.
So, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the county employees and other elected officials, we greatly appreciate what you have just done as a board. And I'll re-echo what you just said. I do believe this will ensure leadership within our community and our county operations for years to come. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Now, to make all this happen, we got to take item 7. We'll recognize Ms. Fox to bring forward the budget amendments.
Get out of your way here.
Just bad news. That's all right.
That's all right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Like Don, I'd like to thank you for all the employees for adopting this plan. And just to give you a little information about, it's effective January 1st. It will be on payroll checks this Friday, the 18th, the increase. And then next week, we will do a retro check from January 1st through the 1st of March.
So
what I would like to follow up on that, so after today's meeting, we will provide I'll provide information to the departments and offices. I'll have scheduled meetings with them in the next week to go over the next 3 or 4 days, to go over the details of this. But since Ms. Fox said it'll be at this payroll check, there will also be information in the payroll stubs themselves that gives the employees themselves direct information in regards to whatever adjustment was made to them.
Okay. This amendment covers the 6-month period of the increases. The first section is the wages. Then we have the benefits that's included on them. The total for general fund, which includes the transfer to Green Energy Fund, is $1,679,503. We will reduce the contingency that we had set aside by the $725,000 and ask that you appropriate $954,503 from general fund balance. Also, Economic Development Fund, their amount from their fund balance is $7,485. The Real Property Fund will be $12,178. Solid Waste Fund, $18,964, and they did have some additional revenues in their budget that will cover that part. The Green Energy Fund is $8,653. So again, we're asking that the fund balance be appropriated of $954,503.
Do I have a motion then to approve this budget amendment to implement the salary study?
So move.
All right, is there any question, or second? Give me a second next. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, Madam Clerk, if you'd call roll, please.
Commissioner Deeds?
Yes.
Commissioner Woody?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Stribling?
Yes.
Chairman McMahon?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll take item 8 is the Dillsboro River Property Easement Agreement, and we'll recognize our attorney, Ms. Baker.
Well, that's hard to follow, so thank you. This is from last week. You may remember we talked about the Dillsboro River property. The Richard and Jones Stillwell have an easement on our plat. It came from Duke Energy, from our property across the river to their property for sewer easement. And they requested that that be moved, and a location actually works well for our property as well. Will be behind the bathrooms on the area and instead of across through the middle of the property. And this is in the area of the C.J. Harris put in. And so this is an agreement. It's really that you have, it's up on the screen that you have in front of you. It's kind of a pre-agreement where we agree to let them move it, to allow that to be moved so that it can then we can then survey it in its exact location and record an amendment to do that. And it will abandon the old easement in place of the new easement. So that's what this agreement does. It's pretty straightforward agreement. I kept it simple. And they have seen it. They're good with it as well, and we'll be signing it. And then go ahead and they'll start the work. We'll get the survey done and record a final easement amendment that'll be recorded. And so I'm asking for this agreement to be approved, but I'm glad to answer any questions.
Would someone like to put forward a motion to approve this agreement?
I'll do so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any question or discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Commissioner Stribling?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Woody?
Yes.
Commissioner Deeds? Chairman McMahon?
Yes, motion carries. And also, item 9, while Ms. Baker is here, is the offer to purchase and contract from Timothy and Belinda Heaton. This is with Resolution R22-02.
Yes, so this is a tough one. I'll tell you. And I told the Heatons I'm not sure what you'll want to do with this. And Commissioner Stribling asked me in a break, and I told him I'd explain a little bit more. It is a low offer, so I included some other information here. So the Heatons have made an offer of $600 for a property that we've had for some time. I think since 2015, the county has owned this property through tax foreclosure. And Don, I don't know if you want me to do, if you just want to scroll down for me, you can see there where it falls on our tax foreclosure list. Is that 2015 that we've owned it, the last column there? Okay. And then going on down to the next document, I included a couple of emails here to help clarify this. So they originally offered $100 for this. They went out and took a look. And so you can see on there, this email, and then there's an email right behind it. I think that's included there as well. That explains a little bit, and I included these emails primarily so you could see what she says about the property. That there's only about 2,100ths of an acre of this piece that's buildable. The rest is as steep as you'll see on the other documents, and she gives you some other information there. But when they offered the 100, I didn't tell her that would be insulting. What I did tell her is that it cost us more than that to move forward on one of these because we have to advertise it for upset bid. So I didn't think that was a reasonable bid. So she asked me a starting point. I did not answer that. I cannot tell somebody that. But they came forward. They came back with the $600 offer. I will tell you, Don, if you don't mind to scroll on down, I'll show property first. So this is just the tax property card. Sometimes I know you want to know this information, how we have it listed. There is a little house or a shack on there. It needs to be torn down. You can see we've got a value for $4,000 and something on that, and it's in the bottom corner of the property. Right there. It's some kind of structure. It's not any type of livable structure. It would have to be taken down. But if you'll keep scrolling down, so this piece here, you can see in the blue. Up there towards the top, that's the piece of property. I included this so you could see where it was. That's 74's highway coming through. And in Skyland Drive, the road.
This is coming up. If you come up the old highway, after you come underneath the trestle, this is the property on the right where the Mills family mainly lives.
That's their property?
Part of it is. That's part of their property.
That's their houses now too?
No, it's one of them. This one was in the name of Bradley. This is the very first piece that runs down to that big bend in the creek. You come across the new bridge and you can look down there and see that big bend in the creek. It's the piece that comes down to the creek there, up to the bridge. Up to the bridge that goes across the creek on Ladderback Trail.
And it's steep. And if you want to scroll down, I did include two. This one these are 20-foot contours. Again, I could not put the 4-foot contours on. It widened it out. So these are 20-foot contours. So you can see, but if you go on down, you have to look closely. Dawn's got it where the blue is to see. There's, and Dawn, if you'll go back up to the one in front, you can see that very bottom corner is the only potential buildable site. So the only other thing I'll add, I've had a few people ask me about this property over the years because the entire time I've been here, this has been on our list. They go out and take a look at it and don't make an offer. I have a local realtor who's been interested in it, and I let him know about this offer coming in, even the amount of this offer, and he was thinking about it, pulled some septic information on it, and wasn't even interested at this. We could get upset bids. I don't know. So with that, I'll answer any questions, but that's all the information.
The other thing that I would be concerned about with that property is access.
Right away.
I have been there as a member of the fire department on several occasions over the last couple of years. The bridge, it crosses Scotts Creek. It's a wooden bridge. It is not safe for a vehicle to cross. That bridge will have to be rebuilt for a vehicle. That's the only bridge to get over there, and we've actually only been able to take an ATV across it to transport patients out. It is in really bad shape. So a bridge will have to be constructed as well as a road to get into this site. It is very limited.
Now, do these people live here part-time? I noticed their address was Alabama.
I've talked to her a few times because she's asked me about several properties. They want to retire here, and they're trying to find a way to do it very, to afford to do it. And they're interested in some of these properties. But yes, I mean, yeah. Well,
Has she visited that property?
she has. They have, and that's why in the one email they said they know it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of money to get it in shape. That's why, this is their offer. I don't think they'll.
Will they pay the back taxes?
No, when we foreclose, that pays those. So no, when we move forward on one like that, they would. The benefit is they'll pay taxes moving forward. They'll put it back on the tax rolls.
And it's valued about 40,000. Did I see that?
I think it's less than that. Oh, it's right there. It's right.
No, it says total about 44.
Okay. That includes that structure that's really a negative value.
It's
Yeah.
a negative.
Yeah.
It is a, that's not the old house. It is a house. The old house sets back up the creek a little further. There's a mobile home on that property. There is an old house and a lot of other stuff.
But you can't get to it.
Can't get to it.
Scary going over a bridge on a four-wheeler, huh?
And if you decide you want to move forward on it, we do have a resolution as the other attachment here.
There is power over there. So, I will say that. Well, I mean, it's on the books. It's been on here a long time, and someone's made an offer. I'm inclined to almost accept the offer and let them proceed forward.
Is that a motion?
I'll put that form of a motion.
And I'll second.
Any other questions or discussion?
If we want to pull up the resolution, we can clarify that you're
Okay,
talking
yeah,
about
and that
approving.
motion would also include approving resolution R-2202. To start the upset bid process. All right, hearing no comments or questions, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Commissioner Deeds?
Yep.
Commissioner Woody?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Stribling?
Yes.
Chairman McMahon?
Yes, motion carries. Next is old business. Final offer for item number 10 is final offer on lots 11 and 18B of River Rock.
So I'm still working through the 32 lots that this is from December that we're closing. So I've had a few more. That's what these are, closed the upset bid periods to go 10 days without an upset bid. And so these two lots, I have this offer here to show you. I had one person bidding on these two lots in particular. The original bid was 500. On these two bids got here up to $1,450, but this is not the final offer. The final offer you have in your notebook. I realized that we didn't have the final offer up there today. It is for $1,573. So the original bidder, Divine Consulting, came in and bid over this one $1,573, which was the minimum bid, and then the other couple of folks I had bidding did not bid any further. So final offer on these two is $1,573, and because it's not the original bid, it does come back to you for approval.
So $1,573
Each.
for lots 11 and 18B.
So it tripled.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. Would someone like to put forward a motion to accept this offer?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any question or discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Stribling?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Woody?
Yes.
Commissioner Deeds? Chairman McMahon?
Yes, motion carries. And then item 11 is the final offer on lot 44, Garnet Ridge.
Yes, so on lot 44 Garnet Ridge, the original offer, I meant to verify this, I believe was $5,000 in December. And this current bid and final bid is $13,550. So this was our biggest increase through the upset bid process of any of them so far. And it's actually the Garnet Ridge Homeowners Association or Property Owners Association that came in and made this bid. They had back taxes, back assessments that they hadn't filed a lien, so they were wiped out with the foreclosure, and so they're interested in getting this lot and trying to recoup those when they sell it, and that's why they came in and bid on this. And so there were a couple others bidding on this, but at this amount they backed off, and so we're looking for approval to approve this bid of $13,550 to the Garnet Ridge Property Owners Association.
Someone like to make a motion to accept this offer?
So move.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second it for discussion. Any question or discussion? If not, then, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Deeds?
Yes.
Commissioner Woody?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Stribling?
Yes.
Chairman McMahon?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, that brings us to the end of our business session. Is there any of the press on, Logan? Okay. Do we have need for closed session?
No, sir.
Good answer. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our meeting. Do I have a motion that we adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.